how do you take people from meeting them at a party or, having a catch-up call with them or taking them to coffee or meeting them at a networking event to becoming a client? Most people have no process there, right? They just kind of wing it, or they say like, hey, do you want to do a discovery call? And they ask them a few questions and then present their service and hope the person signs up. But again, we're missing this sort of warm up. We're missing this know, like, and trust factor. We're missing, how do people really see the value of working with you?
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm McKenna Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2025. I hope you all had a beautiful holiday season and a wonderful new year. I am McKenna Sage, of course, and I'm coming to you with a few special business-themed podcast episodes for the next few weeks. So Gigi's going on a lovely trip here shortly, and so I'll be solo here for a couple of weeks and really excited to bring these episodes to you. A lot of the coaching we do with women is around business. It is around growing their business or starting a business. And so this week in particular, this episode is going to be for those of you who are either starting a new business or you've been in business for a while, but you have yet to reach 6 figures. And it's not that 6 figures on its own is like this magic number, right? But it is a number that a lot of people set as a goal when they're starting their businesses. And so that's something we hear a lot is I'd love to reach 6 figures. And so that's what this episode is really about. And we want 2025 to really be the year that you break through here. Now, next year, we'll have an episode for those of you who are already at or past 6 figures and want to grow to multiple 6 figures or more. So I'm going to kind of take each stage because there are definitely different things that matter at the different stages. So essentially, I'm going to be sharing my stories and some of the biggest lessons that I learned that made the difference in reaching each of these income brackets. So before I go into this, I wanted to share a little bit of background, and that is to tell those of you who don't know already that I have been an entrepreneur for about, 12 years now. And so I started my first business at the end of 2012. So I guess it's almost been 13 years and going on 13 years. And at that time, I was about 6 months out of college. Wasn't really planning on starting a business, but I started freelancing and that's what it turned into. And I built that business to 6 figures in about 18 months. Now, the second time that I did this, that I built a business and got it to 6 figures, it took me about half that time. So this was about 6 years later. I was transitioning out of that original business, which was in marketing and copywriting, and transitioning into coaching. And so at that time, it took me about half the time to get there. And then that business continued to grow from there. So let's talk about this first business first, because they were different types of businesses. And I think that's also really helpful. Now, they were both service-based businesses. So for those of you in product-based businesses, some of this is going to apply. Some of it may not. You'll have to listen and kind of see what really feels like it resonates for you. But most of our clients are in service-based businesses. And so the first business that I had was essentially a freelancing business. That's how it started out. I was exchanging time for money. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was actually a really lucrative business. I was doing that at first, not making a lot of money, but very quickly raising my prices as demand increased. And so I was making money at a higher and higher level, right? So I started out in that business charging, I think, $25 an hour. And by the time I left that business, I was charging around $250 or more per hour. So I want to share some of the lessons that I learned in growing that business to six figures and maintaining that for years. And over those years that I was maintaining, or at least between kind of 100 to 150K in revenue per year, my working time decreased. So even though I was staying around the same income level, or I grew for a little while and then kind of maintained, my working hours decreased. So I was making more money per hour, so to speak. So that business, as I mentioned, was in online marketing. It was in copywriting, marketing strategy. And I worked with speakers and authors and coaches, and I helped them really bring their message to the world online. So part of that was helping them clarify their message and really get clear on, like, what is it that I have to say? What's unique about me and what I have to share? And then really, how do I communicate that with people that I want to serve, right? With my ideal clients. And I really specialized in heart-centered entrepreneurs. So people who are mission-driven, who are out to make the world a better place, because that really aligned and resonated with my own values. And so in this business, I did it for 6 years, 2012 to the beginning of 2018. So 5.5, 6 years. And one of the lessons I learned that I want to share with you is that you don't have to start out charging super high prices. As mentioned, I started out at $25 an hour in that business. Now, that was very low for the kind of work that I was doing, but that's where my confidence was when I was starting. And I didn't stay there for long. That was like for a very short time. And then I would just progressively increase as I continued to have demand, more demand than I could handle. And people kept saying yes to the higher prices. And so that's one lesson I want to impart, is that I think a lot of people get into having their own businesses and they think they have to charge premium prices. And there's a lot of talk about this out there. Now, I also am not a huge proponent of, I don't want to say undercharging, but charging very, very low prices, because that can really, we'll talk about this more, but that can really set you up for failure in another way. So you want to find that sweet spot, which is, what is the price that really feels like the right price for you right now, where you can go out with confidence and ask for that, even if you're scared a little bit, but you're like, okay, I can own this. I feel that I can deliver value at this level or even more. And people are willing to pay it. So there's a sweet spot there, and you get to find that. And then you get to grow quickly if you want to, and raise your prices over time. So as your reputation grows, as demand grows, you can continue to increase. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you in terms of really growing to that six figures, is you don't have to jump in and try to match the pricing that other people are doing if your confidence isn't there yet. All right. Number 2, your network is everything. When you are starting a new business, a small business, it's all about people. It's all about communicating with people, getting to know people, catching up with people, growing your network, tapping into your current network. And when people hear this, a lot of the time they think, oh, well, I don't want to sell to family and friends, right? And you don't necessarily have to, right? You probably have a lot of extended people in your network that aren't necessarily family or close friends. So I don't necessarily make a rule that I don't work with family or friends. I definitely have, but in general, it's not who I go out and try to talk to or, bring in to come into a program or something like that. That's really if they come to me. So for the most part, it's friends of friends, or it's kind of acquaintances and people like that maybe I didn't talk to that often. That's where I started. I really started with people in my sort of extended network that weren't in my close inner circle. And then also getting yourself in rooms of people who need the services you have to offer. So this is really about expanding your network. And so if you are, for example, I was in online marketing, and my ideal client were coaches and speakers and authors. And so I would go to personal development conferences. I would go to things like this, where I would be in a room with people who were my ideal client. And it was just such a natural thing to get to know people, to talk to them, to share what I did. And people would be like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for, a marketing strategist, or I've been looking for a copywriter. And it was a very natural flow. So growing your network, tapping into your current network is key. A mistake I see that people make is that they go and they try to just put it out there on social media, let's say, or, think their clients are going to come through social media, or, sometimes they'll come through social media or paid ads or something like that, like really casting a much wider net. But in general, it's a much more difficult way to go, in my experience. And sort of the returns are much lower because there's this concept in marketing, which is warmer leads versus colder leads. And so a warm lead would be someone like that more, or they know people you know very well. So there's already a connection. There's already some level of know, like, and trust. Whereas a colder lead would be someone who's never heard of you before, and all of a sudden they see your ad online. So there's not a lot of trust. There's not a lot of, that factor yet. And it takes a lot more time typically to build that with a colder lead. And so the conversion rate, meaning the number of people that come through that are colder, is going to be much lower than the people who come through your warmer network. And warm can even be meeting them at an event, because meeting someone in person is such a different experience than just seeing an ad online, let's say. So just to recap, when it comes to, finding and enrolling clients in your business, I like to say that there's at least 6 figures of income waiting in your warm network, waiting in your extended warm network. So it doesn't mean, again, close friends and family necessarily, but people and the people they know. And so it's about, how do I get connected to those people or be in conversations with those people? Or if you really feel like you need to go one layer further out than that, then how do I get in rooms where my ideal clients are? So these are some things to be thinking about when you're looking at going to 6 figures and really hitting that magic number. Now, that business, the online marketing business, was essentially like a high-paying, flexible job in the end. Because yes, I had to market myself to some degree, but I grew to where it was a lot of word of mouth. So I wasn't doing a lot of marketing. I wasn't doing a lot of sort of business building. I was really just delivering a service, getting paid for that service, and that was it. So it was great. I mean, there was so much to love about it. And on the other hand, I knew deep down it wasn't my soul's purpose. It wasn't really aligned for me in the long run. But for the time that I did it, it was wonderful. I loved my clients. And it was amazing to have the ability to take care of myself, to, travel, to do a lot of things that I wasn't able to do when I was quite broke before starting that business. So I'm really thankful for those years. They were great, great years. And for some people, if you're listening to this, you might have a similar situation, but it may be a day job, right? It may not be a business. But it may be something that, okay, this isn't the end all be all of what I want to do, but it makes me decent money. And, it's been great being able to do this. So something I wanted to share about that is that if you have a day job or you have a business that isn't quite it, but it's made you good money and you've had stability, then something that my mentor shared with me that was really powerful for me when I was making my transition from that business into coaching, I was really struggling with I'm so done with this business because I'd been doing it for almost 6 years. I was having anxiety and panic attacks. Some of you know my story, where I just started to have a lot of anxiety on a regular basis, and at one point was having daily full-blown panic attacks. And this I now see as my body and my soul telling me hey, there's something else you're meant to be doing. And I had a lot of fear around making a change. And so that message had to get louder and louder and louder before I would listen, because I was very much a risk averse. I'm going to stay in what's secure and what's comfortable and what I know kind of person. So I'm having this experience. It's very, very difficult. And so I'm man, I just cannot wait to be doing something different. And once I got clear that what I wanted to do was coaching, I was trying to make this change. And I was just so frustrated with my marketing business at that point. And Gigi, my mentor and my mom, who's the co-host of this podcast, said to me, McKenna, you need to get so grateful for what you have Otherwise, it won't let you go. I'm going to repeat that one more time. You need to get so grateful for what you have. Otherwise, it won't let you go. What did she mean by that? Well, there's a principle in personal development, which is that what you resist persists. So when we resist something, it actually persists. It actually hangs on, and it's harder to sort of separate yourself from it. So this is a little bit of what she was talking about here. The opposite of resistance, in this case, was really gratitude. So by shifting my energy to, okay, this may not be what I want to do anymore, but it's been an amazing run. I've had incredible clients. I'm so thankful. I've made great money. I've had flexibility. I've been able to travel. And I really shifted my energy. I really shifted my attention to that and just like felt my gratitude. And of course, there were days that I still wanted, I was still frustrated or whatever. But overall, I really changed my approach. And so that's something I want to share with you too, is that whatever you're resisting, can you shift to gratitude instead? So maybe you're in a similar situation where you're in a job or you're in a different business and you want to make a change, or maybe it's something different. Maybe you're resisting the situation you're in where you're not making the 6 figures you want to make yet, or whatever that number is for you. Can you instead really shift to like, what is working? Like, have you made some money? Have you had some success, or maybe people giving you great feedback on what you do? Have you learned some things? Who is the person you're becoming in the process of building this business? So really shifting to, what are you grateful for about where you are right now? So when I made my shift into coaching, I do want to talk about this transition because some of you are making a transition or starting something new. And so at first, many of you know this, I tried and failed to make this transition in 2017. I had no real plan. This was before Gigi stepped in and was mentoring me. I was trying to do it on my own. I got some idea that I wanted to start coaching. And I thought, well, when I started my online marketing business, I just kind of started, right? I just kind of told people this is what I was doing. And then clients started showing up and it was relatively easy. So I thought maybe it'll be the same way with coaching. And I did that. I kind of announced on social media that I was going to start coaching and waited for the clients to roll in. And of course, I talked to people and I did my thing there, but it was pretty much crickets. I got one client who wasn't paying me very much money and only stayed with me for a couple of months. And apart from that, I was bringing in zero income. Now, going from about $10,000 a month in my other business to zero income was devastating. I wasn't prepared for that. And so within a couple of months, I was like, this isn't working. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this. And I went back to my marketing business, kind of quietly picked that up again, tail between my legs, and was super embarrassed. So what did I learn from that experience? And then stepping into coaching a year later with support from my mentor, but also other coaches that I worked with and other programs that I did. Looking back, there's some lessons I learned. And so I really want to share this with those of you who are starting a business or really at any stage. A lot of these lessons are valuable. So one is, this was a different business model. I really needed to learn the business of coaching, which was different than the business of marketing. Of course, they're related. There's marketing involved in coaching, but it was a different kind of marketing. And I was working with clients who were at a much bigger scale. They were much further along in their businesses. So doing kind of the grassroots, getting to the first 6 figures, I didn't know how to do that. And so I needed to learn that business model. And particularly, I needed to learn to improve my marketing and sales skills in that industry for that stage of business. And so that was really important. And Gigi, my mentor, said to me, I'm going to mentor you on the coaching side, a little bit on the business side, but you need to go out and you need to get other mentorship as well. And so I went out and I found a program on how to grow a coaching business from kind of A to Z. And I followed that program to a T. And that is where I really learned heart-centered sales. That's where I learned, how to tap into my network more and how to approach this. And that's where at first I got a lot of no's, which I'll talk about in a moment, but then I started to get a lot of yeses and business really started to take off. One other thing I want to talk about before we go there, though, is that stepping into coaching was really stepping into my soul's work. It was stepping into my purpose. And in that, self-doubt became a huge factor, much more than it had ever been in copywriting and marketing. It's not that I never doubted my abilities in marketing, but it was different. I didn't have as much on the line. It was like, okay, this is something I'm good at. People seem to need it. And that was that, right? And so self-doubt wasn't a huge factor. But when you're doing your heart and soul's work, self-doubt can be big. It can be one of the biggest roadblocks that we see in our clients to them really being able to step out and grow their businesses and, reach the income goals they have for themselves and achieve financial freedom and make the impact they want to make. So if that's really coming up for you, the biggest thing that made a difference for me there was having support. And really through, again, my mom who was mentoring and coaching me, through other coaches that I hired. This was so, so key in those early days because I always say I would have quit 1,000 times, truly. Like I wanted to quit every day because I was so nervous and I was so like, I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know. Can I do this? I feel like I want to do this. I feel like I'm meant to do this, but I didn't have the proof, right? I just had a wish on my heart and of course some skill in coaching. I grew up in it, but I was right at the baby beginning. And so that's something really, really key to know here is that if you're doing work that feels very close to your heart and soul, self-doubt is going to be there. And you want to make sure you have the support because otherwise, I don't know that I would ever have stepped into coaching fully, truly. Or even if I did, it would have taken me so much longer to grow the business that I've been able to grow. So those are a few things. Have a plan in place, figure out a program or a coach or something that you really resonate with and that you see like, oh, the way that they're approaching this really lands for me. And this is what I think is right for me. Not from your head, but from like that resonance, that knowing, that intuition. And then follow the model, like just follow it. That's what I did. And I have seen that when somebody does that and they stick to it, most of the time it works. If they chose, again, from a place of, I feel this is the right person for me. I feel this is the right approach for me, not I think that this person knows what they're doing because they have all these flashy results. So another thing I want to share is that if you're making a shift like this, it's not necessarily a leap into a new business or a leap into whatever. It's a transition process. It might take time. Now, for me, it was pretty quick. It took about 8 months and Gigi was guiding me through this step by step. I had that program I was going through. And at first I got a lot of no's. That was really hard. I was enrolling for a $5,000 program. That was a business coaching program. And it's funny, it's actually the prerequisite. This was the initial version of the program that I put out. Again, I put a new version of it out about a year and a half ago or so. And it's now called Simplified Business Bootcamp. But back then it was called Momentum and Flow. And I was selling it at a much higher price because I was leading the whole thing live and doing group coaching, one-on-one coaching. So there was a lot to it. But this was the very beginning of, okay, growing your business with action and momentum, but also with flow. And so this program still exists in a different form, but this is how it all started. So this was in, again, 2018, $5,000 program. That's what I decided to start with. And so I went out there, I was talking to people, I was sharing about it, I was doing these free kind of enrollment coaching calls, and I got a lot of no's. And it's a little embarrassing to admit, but I would cry after a lot of those calls because I was so devastated. First of all, I thought like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. I was being really hard on myself. But also I saw like what women were going through and the challenges they had. And it was really heartbreaking when they couldn't step through that fear, that doubt or whatever it was that was holding them back from investing in themselves and from going forward and growing these businesses. And so I took it really personally, which now I know it's not personal. I'm not right for everybody. And but at those days it felt like it. So I thought, again, maybe I'm not really cut out for this, but Gigi was like, you have to keep going. And something in me was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So then eventually I started getting some yeses. And oh my gosh, I was celebrating like crazy. It was amazing. And there came a point after a few months where I got 7 yeses in a row, meaning out of 7 enrollment calls, 7 people said yes. So that was $35,000 in revenue in a matter of weeks. This was amazing, just like on top of the world, on fire. And not just in terms of like bringing in that level of income, but like the impact, being able to work with these women and support them. Like one of those women, I remember, she signed up. I was trying all kinds of things at the time. So I'd lead little master classes or webinars. I would do all different things. And I led a webinar and she was the only person on, which she didn't know because it was like, you could see the webinar, but you couldn't see who else was on. She was the only person on. She stayed till the end. I gave it my all. She signed up for a call. We had the call. She said yes. And that was a huge lesson for me in and of itself. Like even if just one person shows up and you give it your all, right? She came into my program, invested $5,000. She had just lost her job and she wanted to start consulting. She'd always thought about doing that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say that within like 8 weeks or something, she was making, I think, about $10,000 recurring revenue per month. Like that's life-changing, right? She literally invested $5,000 in this program. And within, 8 weeks, she's making $10,000 a month. It was incredible. Now, not everybody got that level of result. She was poised. She had the skill set. Right? But still, it was just like, there were all kinds of different successes. That's just one that pops into my mind. So there was the revenue side, of course, that felt amazing, but there was also the impact side of seeing these women have the confidence to go out and do what they really wanted to do. So another story I'll share quickly, just because kind of this topic of having a lot of no's before you get yeses, is that one of our clients has been going through my Simplified Business Bootcamp program in the last few months. So she started, I think, in the summer, and she's really been going through it diligently. That's a 10 module. It's a very extensive program that teaches everything like A to Z in terms of how to grow your heart-centered service-based business to 6 figures or more. So she's going through the program that takes her, a couple months. She starts applying it. She's getting out there. She's really diligent about talking to people. And, she signed up for the version. There's a couple different versions. So rather than the self-study, she did the one where she has a few calls with me. And so we're getting on these calls and she's like, I'm doing it. I'm following it to a T. And I'm getting a lot of no's. It just feels like it's not working. And I just said, stick in there, like I really see you're clear on all these things. The value's clear. Just keep going. So just a couple weeks ago, I got on her final call with me and she said, McKenna, I just enrolled 2 people in my $8,000 coaching program in one day or one weekend. I can't remember. So after months of no's, right, the yeses just started popping off. $16,000 in one weekend. She was like, oh my God. It was just proof that like, okay, I can do this. So I just want to share those stories because there will be times where it feels like nothing's working. There will be times where it feels like you're getting a lot of no's. And as long as you have the right approach, a proven strategy, a proven structure, a way to bring people through this process, and this is something a lot of people are missing, is like, how do you take people from meeting them at a party or, having a catch-up call with them or taking them to coffee or meeting them at a networking event to becoming a client? Most people have no process there, right? They just kind of wing it, or they say like, hey, do you want to do a discovery call? And they ask them a few questions and then present their service and hope the person signs up. But again, we're missing this sort of warm up. We're missing this know, like, and trust factor. We're missing how do people really see the value of working with you? So this is a lot of what I teach is creating a client cultivation flow, which means how do you cultivate the client, right? You don't marry someone on the first date. You don't ask them to marry you on the first date. You want to date them for a little while first. You want to get to know them. And so there is this process in business as well. So how do you do that in a really systematic way, but also a very heart-centered way? So that's really, really important to have that in place and to know heart-centered sales, which a lot of people shy away from the word sales, but sales is not about convincing people ever, right? I don't convince people to work with us. We have conversations. We talk about what they're challenged by. Sometimes I'll lead them through a breakthrough call. It depends on the approach, right? And what kind of program they're enrolling in. But in that, they get to see, am I the right fit for them? They get to ask their questions. And then there comes a point at which I make the invitation for them to come in and they can say yes or they can say no. So in that, though, people shy away from this. They don't want to learn the nitty-gritty of this. And so they struggle then to enroll clients. So I'm just sharing that these are some of the skills I had to learn, right? I had to learn how to package myself, my skills, what I had to share into something that really fit with what people needed and wanted. And luckily I had a lot of those skills coming from my previous business. So I was able to design a really high value package going right into this business. Then there was the mindset piece, like self-doubt, fear, how to move through those. And that was a lot of trial and error. And that was a lot of getting support from my mentor and other coaches. So really learning that piece. And then it was really, okay, what is my client cultivation flow, right? How do I put myself out there? How do I connect with people? How do I bring someone through this process and use heart-centered sales to really just connect with them and be in service to them and give them the opportunity to come in and work with me once we've had a chance to get to know each other. So these were some of the things before I ever got to any kind of fancier marketing, right? And this is some of the mistakes that I see people make when they're trying to get to six figures. They overcomplicate it. And that's why I really called this the simplified six-figure strategy. That's what this episode is about, is what's a simplified approach, right? So you don't need tons of social media marketing. Now, I posted semi-regularly on social media when I started just because I like to be out there and visible in some way. But I have clients that have taken my Simplified Business Bootcamp program and, use that approach and do zero social media marketing. So you do not need it. I've just always kind of enjoyed it. I like to write. I like pictures. I've come to like video a lot more. So I'm semi-regular about that. I go through phases where I'm not as regular, but it's just a way for me to be out there and visible in the world in some way. But you don't actually need it. If you're someone who hates social media, or you're posting every single day and nothing's happening, that actually was one of our clients' stories. A few years ago, she came in, she said, I posted every day for a year on social media and I didn't get a single client. And then she came in and she started getting clients left and right because she had an actual strategy that worked. So you don't need a ton of social media. Other things I didn't do that I see, people do that can be, again, I don't want to use the word mistake because there is no one size fits all, but it's not the approach that I've seen work for most people. So I didn't create a bunch of super low ticket offers that I had to sell a lot of to reach my income goals. And this is something I see a lot when I talk to people. I just had a call with someone recently and she said, I want to create this subscription that's like, I think she said $15 for the year, which is amazing. Like, wow, what a gift to offer something that's $15 for the year. It seems that way. But then I said, how much money do you want to be making? And she said $100,000. And I said, okay, 100,000 divided by 15 is 6,666 clients in the year. I said, do you have that kind of reach? Do you have a huge audience online or, like tons of people who know, like, and trust you who would want to buy this thing? And she said, no, I don't really have any kind of audience yet, but I just thought that people would sign up at a lower price and I could offer this service. And I said, well, in my experience, that's not the case. We think that like lower ticket is going to make it easier to sell, but it's not necessarily true. So in that, you want to find that sweet spot. Again, you don't need to charge super premium pricing. She doesn't need to go out and have a $5,000 program, but maybe there's something she can offer that's $1,000 and it's really high value and it's a service. And, that would still be 100 clients in the year, but that's way less, right? So 100 clients in the year divided by 12 is only 8 clients a month. Now, that's still high. I usually recommend trying to find some way to reach your income goal. That is, maybe you can do it with 2 to 3 clients a month. All right. So if your income goal is $100,000, then we're going to divide that by 12. It's $8,333. Let's divide that by 3, $2,777. So let's say about $3,000 a month. Now, that number may freak you out. You may be like, I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere close to that. And that's okay. For some of you, if you're closer to 6 figures, it may not freak you out as much, right? Or there may be a different approach. But I just want you to really start to think about, like, how many clients is it going to take to get me there? And does this feel realistic to go out and find that number of clients per month? What's my track record? How have I done with this so far? And if you're nervous about enrolling at a higher ticket price, it's usually because you feel like you don't know if you can offer that much value, which I can almost guarantee that you have something you can offer that would be hugely valuable for people at a rate. Now, it may not be that, maybe it's $1,500 to start or something else, but again, really finding that sweet spot. And maybe if you're just starting your business, then 6 figures isn't your first goal, right? Maybe it's going for $50,000 your first year. So you can cut that number in half, sell $1,500 packages, and still get there with 3 clients a month. So I just want you to start to run the numbers. Don't be afraid to really look at that and go, is selling something super low ticket and trying to go out for volume what's going to serve me best? And, do I really see that I can do volume? And again, you can try it, but for most people that I've seen try this, it's much harder than you think unless you have a huge audience already. If not, then you're much better served to find something very high value you can offer. So that's just a little tweak there. I created 1 offer to start. Most of my clients create 1 or 2, and that's it. Now, I didn't create a bunch of online programs to create quote unquote passive income because I wasn't at that stage yet. Now we have online programs that are more passive. But at that point, it's like the mistake I see people make is they spend all this time creating this online program. They get this idea, they're excited, they put time, money, energy into developing something. Meanwhile, they're not getting paid while they're developing it. They're putting all this time in, and then they put it out there, and a lot of times it's crickets. Like, people don't buy. And then they're devastated and they think like, where did I go wrong? So I call that how to go broke creating your online programs. How to get paid to create your online programs is to do more what I did, which was I had an idea for a program. I went out there and I enrolled people in it. I led it live. So I led that program, Momentum and Flow, live, I think maybe 5 or 6 times. So every 3 to 4 months, I would start a new group and I'd have 3 to 6 people in a group and I'd lead it live and I would, have some topics that stayed the same, but I would refine and I would coach and I would work with people, and it got better and better and better every single time. And then eventually I pre-recorded some parts of it, and that program was super, super successful. It made me lots of money, right? And it was very successful in supporting my clients. And then a few years later, I said, I want to go back to that, totally reinvent it, rework it, and put it out there as Simplified Business Bootcamp, cut the price basically in half, and put it out as a self-study or a version where they can get some private coaching with me. And so that's the program that I have today. But I was getting paid all along the way to do this, right? Because people were signing up for my program. They were going through it live. Now I have it as a pre-recorded, but I got paid to create that pre-recorded program essentially. And I knew that it worked for people and I knew that it got results. So the mistakes that I talked about. You don't need to do tons of social media marketing. You ideally don't create super low ticket offers to try to sell volume, or create online programs to try to create passive income in the beginning. Finally, and this is a big one, you don't need to spend a ton of money on a fancy website, branding, social media, or other pretty distractions, as I like to call them. None of these really move the needle to get you clients. You don't need a fancy website. I started my first business with a WordPress blog that I put up and kind of made it look like a website. That's like it's like a business card, right? Your website. Most people aren't going to have a lot of traffic coming to their website. You don't need to have a lot on there. You could have a simple one-page site. If you want that, you don't even need it. In my second business, I don't even think we had a website for the first, year or something, year and a half. And then we built one, and we kept that one for a few years, and then we built a new one. So, every few years we upgrade there or update, but really, you don't need something super fancy there. You don't need to put a lot of time and money and energy into that. In the beginning, you can totally have a 6-figure business without a website. You don't need fancy branding. You can do a lot these days with Canva or taking some nice pictures on your iPhone. So none of those are truly going to move the needle to get you clients, and they can become distractions, and time and money sucks. So other things I did do, we'll kind of wrap up here soon. I knew my numbers and I worked backwards. I knew I needed to make at least X per month or X per year. And so I worked backwards and I said, what's, again, a package I can offer that will get me there? So the $5,000 package, I can't do math in my head. So I'm just look one more time. So that's 20 clients in the year to get me to 6 figures. 20 times 5,000 is 100,000. So I worked backwards. I said, okay, can I get 20 clients in the year, 1 to 2 a month? And that felt doable. And that's what I did. I eliminated a lot of distractions. I didn't get, pulled into fancy website and branding and all these different things. I got clear on my unique roadmap. So really looking at, once I understood client cultivation and once I understood heart-centered sales, then I really said, okay, outside of just my warm network, what else do I want to do? Or how can I maximize my warm network? And so this is what we go into at the end of that Simplified Business Bootcamp program, is different kinds of marketing strategies that are quite simple, but you can really pick and choose and see which one resonates for you. Is it getting on podcasts? Is it hosting live events? Is it going and speaking in front of other people's audiences? Those are just a few of the different strategies that we talk about, and how do you approach that? So what is your roadmap? Where are you the most magnetic? Because it's going to be different than it is for somebody else. I learned heart-centered sales. We talked about that a lot. So we've covered a lot today. This is, again, there's a lot that goes into reaching that 6 figures, but hopefully you have some great takeaways. Now, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or you're feeling like this is great, I want some support, maybe, I'm curious about Simplified Business Bootcamp, but maybe I'm not ready to jump into that just yet. I have a class coming up at the end of January 25th and 26th, called Focus and Flow. It's an online workshop, and it'll be 2 kind of half days on a Saturday and Sunday for a few hours each day. So that program, that course is really, it's live business training, and it's really to support you to simplify, to focus in on the 20% of what you do or what you can be doing that will get you 80% of your results, instead of being distracted and torn in a whole bunch of different directions, which is how most people are when they talk to me at first, who are trying to get to 6 figures or more. They're like, I just don't know what to be doing. If I knew what to do, and I didn't have to be doing all these different things that aren't working, then I feel like I could really get there. So if that's you, and you're tired of trying so many different things, throwing spaghetti at the wall, time-sucking, money-sucking strategies that don't seem to be working, then we're really going to get to how do you streamline and really focus on what is going to move the needle for you. So eliminating overwhelm, simplifying your business strategy. We are going to get into heart-centered sales and a touch of the client cultivation. We won't be able to go super deep into that in just a 2 half-day training, but we will go into heart-centered sales. So really practicing some of that. actually bringing people up and doing role plays, teaching principles. And this is like game changing. No matter what stage of business you're at. We have a client in our mastermind program, Wealthy World Changers, who came to a half-day training like this with me a couple of months ago that we led for the mastermind. And it was all around heart-centered sales. And she was like, oh my God, I've made sales out to be this terrible thing. I never wanted to follow up with people. I never wanted to bother people. And we really talked about a different approach there that was very authentic. And she went out and she started doing it, and opportunities and clients started showing up left and right. She was voice noting me before the new year, just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how much has changed from learning this different approach. I didn't realize that I was so avoidant before. And now I'm going out there and it feels really genuine and really authentic. And people are just saying left and right that they want to hire us. They want to work with us. She's already very successful. So at any stage of business, this can be really, really powerful. We're also going to create what I call your money magnet roadmap, which is, again, what is your plan to reach your goals? So if your goal is 6 figures, or if it's 50,000, or if it's 500,000, whatever it is this year, having that step-by-step plan. How do you see to get there in a way that is doable, in a way that fits with your unique magnetism? That's something we're going to work on so that you walk out of this class with that step-by-step plan, knowing exactly what you need to do to reach your goals for this year. And then finally, it's really about taking you from this place of like stress and pressure, which is a lot of times, unfortunately, where people go in January. They like get out of the holiday break and they just go pressure, 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 pressure. And bringing you back to a place of creativity and fun and joy in your business, because that's why you're doing it, right? That's why you created a business you love. So we want to get you back to the fun while also doing the things that move the needle to get you results. So I wanted to share this with you because it's such an amazing class, first of all. And it's also really, really affordable. The price is currently $147 at the time of this recording. It's going up to $197 on January 15th. But since you've listened to this episode, I want to give you a special discount code and actually give you $50 off the current pricing. So if you're signing up right now before January 15th, then your $50 off would give you a price of $97 for the weekend. If it's past January 15th, then that price would be $147 with the code. And the code is podcast. So just all one word. So when you go to the page, you go to sign up, there's a place where it says have a coupon code. You're going to enter the code podcast and it's going to give you that discount. The link is wayofthemuse.com/focus, wayofthemuse.com/focus. So I did mention my Simplified Business Bootcamp program. We talked about a lot today. That's really my comprehensive program on how to build a service-based business to 6 figures or more without complicated marketing. And this is everything I learned from doing it myself and coaching hundreds of other entrepreneurs. So if you're just curious about that, you want to take a look at it, it's wayofthemuse.com/SBB. So Simplified Business Bootcamp, S like in Sam, B like in boy, B like in boy. But even if you're interested in that program, I do recommend, if you can, come to Focus and Flow first, because I'm just going to kind of sneakily tell you guys here a secret flash sale on that program during that weekend that you aren't going to want to miss. So even if you're looking at Simplified Business Bootcamp, Focus and Flow weekend is the perfect time to come in and learn, get to know me, see if it's even you want to go deeper, and then we're going to be running a super fun flash sale. So if you can't make it to that weekend and you still want to be in on the flash sale, just email me at McKenna, MAKENA, at wayofthemuse.com and let me know you want to still take advantage or you're curious about it when that all happens. So if you have any questions today, I highly recommend coming to Focus and Flow. You can answer them, or you can ask them there live on the line, or you can email me again at McKenna at wayofthemuse.com. So a couple of closing thoughts before we end for today. 1, take a deep breath and just know that if you have a business in your heart and soul, or if you're already running a business that you love, you absolutely have what it takes. You have what it takes to grow it to 6 figures if you're willing to go all in. So just let that sink in. You do have to go all in the sense of energetically. It doesn't mean it has to be the only thing you're doing, A lot of our clients are building businesses while still working day jobs, and they do that very successfully. I teach strategies to help you do that in just, a couple of hours a day, let's say. But you do have to be all in with your energy, all in with your intent. And there may be some skills you need to learn. So that's really what Focus and Flow is about. That's really what Business Bootcamp is about. And you do most likely need to simplify and eliminate distractions, because if you're pulled in a whole bunch of different directions, it's just not going to serve you really getting to where you want to go. And then finally, you will need to learn sales. This is such a needed skill in practically any service-based business. It's going to serve you so well for life. I used to think I was terrible at sales. I used to think that I hated sales. And now I'm like, I love it. Selling is just serving when you're doing something you love and there's no pressure behind it. It's just making invitations. So a lot of times I'll tell people that, think of it instead of the word sales, sub it out for making invitations. All right. So you will need to learn that. Hopefully you've taken some things away from today. We've covered a lot. Next week, we will have a podcast on the multiple six-figure roadmap. So really, how do you break through six figures, go to multiple six figures or more? And some of you may feel kind of plateaued at that level. This is a lot of our clients are at this kind of six-figure level, or even just a little higher than that, or maybe they're just at multiple six figures, but they feel like they've been stuck at a plateau for a while. So that's where we're going to really help you get your passion back for what you do if that's been fading, and really see what it is you need to grow to that next level. So I'll see you next week. Thank you for being here, and talk to you soon.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.